don't have that in front of you?
The
Yeah.
the agenda he doesn't have? I think it is.
Should be a packet in there.
Would you like my packet?
That does have the EDA packet in there too?
Yes.
Here's the
Not
digital
bad.
version.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll just get mine.
I need mine.
The whole thing?
No.
I'll just get the whole, here, you got the whole packet, there you go.
Okay. I get a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. What do we open a public comment for? Anything?
It's just a standard practice.
Oh.
If there's people here who wanna talk,
Oh.
similar to city council. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Got anything, Jim? Ken?
Where's the list? So much for you.
Okay. Do I need a motion to close public comment then, or is that just a,
You can, yeah.
can I get a motion to close public
Also
comment?
move.
I'll second that motion to close the public comment.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
You might wanna speak up for Glenn, just to make sure he can hear. I think he.
Can you hear Glenn?
I can hear you guys just fine.
Okay.
Okay. So, number one on the agenda is approval of EDA board minutes for September 14th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Outstanding loan report.
I just prepared this so that you guys would have awareness of what we have out. It has then those balances that are outstanding. This is as of June 30th. I've got updated numbers now, but I didn't have them when I prepared the packet, so that's what you have in front of you. I just wanted to make sure you had an awareness of what
So
types of loans.
what are we doing with that,
Mhm.
that non-current, down payment assistance fund? Is that get turned into collections?
That's the,
For
Beam.
that 43,
Yeah, you can
229?
yeah. William and Jennifer. I was told it was with the attorney. Yeah.
We're gonna sue. That's the only thing we can do.
Okay. That's the only non-current one on the whole ledger of everything, isn't it?
Yes.
No, yeah, are these things that we need to approve, or is this just
You could have
informational?
approved it as a consent agenda. You can just review it. It's up
Okay.
to you just to make sure you see what's going on.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then moving on to old business, recommendation for approval of Business Assistance Commission.
Yes, your packet is out of order, so this is after the business assistance policy in your packet. After last 2 weeks ago's meeting, I identified representatives to fill out our business assistance commission to review loans for commercial assistance. So for our city administrator, obviously Chris fills that role. The 2 city council reps include Andy and Phyllis. Mark is Glenn Christensen, and then our bank representative is Steve Cooling. And so I'm looking for a recommendation of approval of commission members to be sent to the city council. And that will be approved at the next city council, not
Is
tonight.
there gonna be an issue having a quorum, having a council quorum for these meetings?
As long as you make a statement at the beginning of those meetings that says no city council business will be discussed, you're okay.
Okay.
And so I'll put that in some directives.
What's that?
I said, what do you need me for?
Okay. Next on the old business is recommendation for approval of business assistance policy.
Is iron out the TIF and
I didn't receive any proposed language or
TIF
have
and
any
tax abatement will be brought back later. We're gonna do some
This
more
is
work
just
with
for
that.
the commission.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or the, yeah.
And so this policy, I would like for it to cover, if you go back to your loan funds, Fund 41 and Fund 45 and Fund 52. So these are the ones we've done revolving loans out of. We receive grants or do other programs later on. Those will also be covered. This program does not cover TIF or tax abatement because we have different policies. I will also note the old policy we had on file was a combination of a business subsidy policy and a business assistance policy. And so we're not removing the old policy yet because there's some restrictions when you get reporting requirements of 150,000 plus. I'll get you a new policy for business subsidies in the future. So just to let you know. I think there was some, is there any discussion that the board would like to have on this?
Hey Cody, if I could, this is where I'd like to jump in because I do have one concern that's, I would say, relatively large and one that's a little bit minor. The main concern I have is I really think somewhere in this policy we need to put a timeline on this. I get, I'm really excited with what Celia's done. Glad that she's here because I think that's going to really help open the door to how this is executed. She can be able to educate on the process. The fact that there's a business assistance commission I think is phenomenal, and I realize I'm somewhat biased, so I'll get past that. But what my concern is that, okay, so Celia helps put the package together, the business assistance commission does their part, it goes to the EDA. In this whole process, I would argue we need to somewhere in there have a timeline that says, okay, this can only take, notionally, I don't know, I'm pulling a number now, but 60 days, beginning to end, as far as the government part of this. And the reason I say that is because government can move at the speed of government, but industry has to move at the speed of industry. And I'm all about putting the rigor in this, but I really think there needs to be some kind of a timeline so it doesn't just lag somewhere and get forgotten.
The only problem with that is you run afoul with other rules as far as notice and opportunity. So putting a strict timeline on certain things, if you want to put a timeline on from the time that a request is received and then considered by the loan application commission, fine. But beyond that, you still have to give certain amounts of notice for EDA and then city council that it can't be circumvented and shouldn't be
Tracking that totally,
circumvented.
so we factor that into the process.
But each loan would have a different type of possible time limit in which to go for a guideline. Each one of them, because that's why we've got 5 different types of loans, is that each one of them have their own specific parameters to be met and how they are handled. So I understand, I like what Patrick says about, but from the time a loan comes, a request comes to us, that we in a timely manner consider it. But from there on, we have to follow the guidelines that go with the particular loan which they are trying to get funds from.
Okay, but I don't think that, now correct me if I'm wrong, but different types of loans don't have different timelines, they have the same requirements. They all have to go to the EDA, they all have to be approved by the council. So maybe it's not an exact number of days, but it's, once the loan has been approved by the Business Assistance Commission, it will meet the next EDA, or it will meet the next EDA and the next council, or the one after them, whatever the number is. But I don't understand why there would be different timelines for different loans, and I just don't think it's a bridge too far to say that once the Business Assistance Commission has approved, made a recommendation for approval. Now, if they've made a recommendation for denial, that's a different animal. But if they made a recommendation for approval, then I don't see why it's a bridge too far to say that it will meet the next EDA, or it'll meet within 2 EDAs. It must be met. I don't see why that's a problem.
That language is already in there about 10 days before the Business Assistance Commission. That's the timeline they have to meet within 10 days. And then it has to be at the next EDA meeting, has to be at the next city council meeting. So that language is in there.
Oh, it is in there? Oh,
Yes.
Perfect. Well, that's good. That is the bail to me. That's perfect. Which leads me to my second question, and I just kind of submit this to the council. But the one thing that I struggle with a little bit, just because it looks a little too bureaucratic to me, is so it meets the EDA, and the EDA grants approval, then it has to meet the council. The reason that seems a little overly bureaucratic to me is because the EDA is the council.
No, that's what we're trying to make sure we're not. We're not
saying from the
The
EDA to the full city council?
I don't really foresee that being an issue, Glenn, because the standing EDA meeting is gonna be, directly in front of the council meeting, so those same votes will just be re-recorded, an hour later.
Okay, yeah, it's not a big issue, that was small potatoes compared to the timeline piece of this, it just seemed a little redundant, it sounded like a Austin Powers movie, allow myself to introduce myself. I've approved this, but now I'm not, but to your point, Andy, I think you're right, if that's the case, then I'll let it go, it was a little concerned about that, because it seemed like it was overly bureaucratic, but to your point, if the EDA is prior to the council, then the EDA gives a thumbs up, the council does the same thing, it's just recorded that way.
Right.
Don't
Okay,
some of
thank
them
you.
have to be actually posted for a certain amount of days from the date in which the EDA meets with them so that the public knows about it? So it cannot be voted on an hour later at the next council meeting. There has to be a timeline in between.
It wouldn't,
That's the law.
yeah, it wouldn't just follow right
It
after.
would not,
that.
it would not be considered the next meeting.
There's
Directly an
potential.
hour later.
Well, then we go back to my concern, now we are creating an extra bureaucratic step.
No,
we're
we're
not.
not
We're
creating,
following
we're following.
we're following the law, and the key is notice and opportunity. We're giving notice to the community that the EDA has recommended this loan, and that at the next city council meeting, there'll be open discussion, debate before it reaches final approval. If you don't do that, then citizens can then challenge that loan. They could file suit and challenge it because you're not following the procedures. In an audit, it could become problematic. So
So the fact that we have written in the city ordinance that the EDA is the city council, doesn't mitigate that at all?
no,
So we can't do the public comment period before the EDA,
No, because it wouldn't be a
or
notice.
just skip the EDA and go straight to the council? As long as we give notice.
I struggle with this with you, Glenn. You talk about issues with redundancy and bureaucracy. Weren't you in the military? I mean,
Exactly why I loathe.
well, I can understand you loathing it, but unfortunately, it's something you're going to have to get used to and live with if you want things to be done properly and correctly. And that's the bigger.
Maybe
piece.
just a generalized timeline would clear this all up, because of the fact, even if there is a 2-week period between, or whatever it ends up being, 3 weeks at the most. I mean, I think if we're talking, I think we're talking about still something where if something comes to the initial board and gets approval to be looked at by the EDA, we'd still be well within that 60-day time frame. If that's what you're really worried about, I don't think it's gonna take longer than 60 days. That's not, I don't think there'd be a case unless something got, hung up or something, but as long as everything kind of fell in that timeline, we'd be well within 60 days. Does that make sense?
It does, and this one's not a hill I'm gonna die on, it just seems overly redundant to me. I mean, the EDA is the council, and where does it say that they have to have 2 periods for public comment? So we post the notification that the EDA is considering this loan, so the public has the ability to comment at that time. So then we gotta post it again, so they have another time to comment before the council considers it?
Yes.
Yeah, we did the same thing with multiple sales. The loan should be no less stringent than purchase and sale of property. I mean, that's the reality. Because the last thing you want, Glenn, is someone to question the integrity of the process. I mean, we had that questioning even when we had these, multiple periods of open session regarding the building we're sitting in now. And we did it the right way there. So if you cut corners and someone's questioning the integrity of a loan, then they actually have a legal standing to challenge it. You don't want that.
But I guess what I'm getting at is, even with going through all the right steps, I still think it's gonna be well within that 60-day window. I don't think it should be an issue.
I'm good, I appreciate it, I had the chance to say my piece. I'm still a little concerned, but I think we'll take it on a case-by-case basis, and just make sure that we're shortchange anything, I'm not trying to shortcut anything, and I think the rigor of the process is outstanding. I just wanna make sure that we're not creating an unnecessary bureaucratic burden.
Well,
But, like I said, I've had my chance to say my piece, so, and it sounds like we've got a solution to get after this anyway. We just need to make sure we make the mechanism work for us and not the other way around, and we'll be fine. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to be able to express that.
I think the other thing that's gonna be key to all of this is, as applications come in, letting those applicants know that the process is a 60-day process or a 50-day process or whatever, so they can plan accordingly. You know, that's maybe the biggest thing, is just having the communication with, you know, staff here, knowing that the process takes that amount of time, and there isn't really a fast forward button on it. You know what I mean?
Do we also
Yeah,
have
I
that on
would.
the website?
We will have everything on the website.
Yeah.
And I think the other big victory on this is that we'll have Celia in the process as well, so she can start this off. So any of the oopses that could happen along the way won't, because the applicants will have been educated throughout the process. So I think that'll help as well. So point taken, Andy, thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion on that? Otherwise,
I'd make a motion to approve the, are we just approving the consideration?
yeah, so
And
the
EDA
ordinance
is-
says that, everything that the EDA does has to be approved by city council as well.
Okay.
So this is a recommendation for approval to go to city council.
So I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation for approval.
Yes.
Does that
I'll
have to
second
get,
that motion.
does that have to get posted then? As a policy,
Well,
or can we approve it at the?
again, let's go back to the 10-day notice thing. Is it something that we can add onto the agenda tonight to approve this policy, or do we have to wait until the
I
next?
think you had said next meeting, didn't you?
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
the next one. Yeah,
So
and I would
then
just,
it'll be on October's first meeting to approve
Approve it.
the recommendation from the EDA to approve the business assistant policy, is
Because
that
we have to
correct?
approve the Business Assistance Commission also at the next meeting.
yes.
Okay.
So do we need a motion on both of those by the ED or not?
Okay, so I had Andy's motion and then I have
Glenn's the
Glenn
second.
second.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. And the last thing on there is just my update of what I did in last month. So I looked at the program funds, continued doing that. This was 2 weeks since the last report, so not much has changed. Looking at our assistance application procedures, some of them are out of date. I want to add in some more information so the loan review committee can have more detailed information. However, we received 2 inquiries and I sent them what we have now, just so that process could get started sooner. Personnel policy, looking at updates needed based on legislation, and then I'm going to be listening to it. I have a number of meetings scheduled for this week, including going to the storm shelter groundbreaking to meet with some of those board members to get talking to them about mobile home rehabilitation. Any other questions, comments for me?
Do you have just a rough timeline, like when you think the new policies would be in place for the down payment assistant loan program and stuff like that, or do you have a goal in mind as to when you'd like to kind of roll those policies out with the new terminology and new interest rates and all that stuff?
I would love to do it as soon as possible. I have to communicate with Deed, unfortunately, and I had some conversations with other CETA team members who've worked with Deed, and sometimes their communication can be 2 months to 3 months longer than it should be. But I think I could have a policy by next month for you, a drafted one, but we'd have to wait for their approval, obviously,
Sure.
to change it.
But a long-term goal you'd be looking at hopefully by the first of the year?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, so if you'd like, I can have a policy draft for you that we would wait until Deed gives our approval before I ask you to approve it.
Glenn, are you still there? Okay.
I sure am.
You didn't move. I thought you were frozen. Sorry.
Internet's crazy.
No.
To adjourn at EDA. All right, do we have any other business
Not for EDA.
to talk about?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the EDA meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.